If you've been weighing your options for starting a business, but you're not quite sure what all the options are that you should be weighing, then this video is for you, because chances are you've heard all the enchanting things about entrepreneurship, like having more freedom and flexibility or doing something that really lights you up, not to mention all the promised riches that come from your pursuits. Hello, rich social workers. But if you're new to the idea of having your own business, and especially in this age of online entrepreneurship, you might not have a true understanding of what it actually takes to be successful. And here's the thing. US labor statistics assume that about 20% of new businesses fail within the first year, and 12.5% of those do so because of lack of preparation in one way or another. So if you're better prepared than the bottom 7.5% of business owners, you've got a fighting chance. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the not so glamorous parts of getting into business and business building that are overlooked a lot of the time by new entrepreneurs, so that you can make an informed decision on whether or not the entrepreneurial life is for you. If it's your first time here, or whether we're meeting again, welcome to Rich Social Worker. I'm Eva Ford, social worker, mindset mentor, and online business coach. And on this channel, we talk all about money, mindset, and motivation to help you live your richest life. So if you know you're meant to make a bigger impact in the world and you want to have a bigger income, definitely subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. Like this one, where we're talking about some of the less glamorous parts of entrepreneurship that can hinder your success if you're not expecting them. And I think a great place to start this conversation is by defining what success actually means and looks like when you're an entrepreneur, because I think a lot of times there's a misconception that entrepreneurship is all play and no work, and that all you have to do is wake up every day and check your rising bank account balances. And if that's your idea of entrepreneurship, let me assure you that ain't it. At least not in the beginning. It's not, and anybody who tells you differently is really being disingenuous. So the truth is that success for an entrepreneur is really subjective, and there's no one size fits all formula for each person. And while it might be easier to qualify more objective success factors like profitability of the business or demand for your product or service, the subjective factors that determine your success are as varied as the business you decide to start, your propensities, and the things you care about on your journey at a particular time. So for you, this means that you need to think about what success looks like for you for now, because it's likely that the yardstick of what that means is going to change over time. And speaking of time, has anybody told you about the time investment that entrepreneurship takes early on? So think about it. When you start a business, you've got to figure out what you're going to sell. You've got to choose your business model. You've got to identify who your customers are, do your market research, develop your product or service. You've got to promote it. You've got to fill the orders. You've got to hire staff and a host of other things as you grow. And all of that and more doesn't just happen overnight. Usually before the hours are short, they may be long. In fact, very long. If you're trying to do it on your own, especially and without guidance, which I do not recommend, they can be twice as long. But I know it happens all the time. So you're going to need to evaluate at various points in your journey how you're spending your time and whether or not you're getting the best return on your time investment for that time that you're actually putting in. And if not, you're either going to have to change your strategy or find yourself in that bottom percentile of businesses that fail, and you don't have to. And speaking of failure, this is something that you're going to hear a lot about when you become an entrepreneur, because it happens a lot. But I do think it's important to put some context to this topic, because failure as an entrepreneur is an inevitability. It's basically built into what's required for your ultimate success. And in fact, the more you fail, the better you become. I remember early on in my journey hearing this exact message over and over about how failure was inevitable and how it was like the best thing ever, and how top business professionals, they loved it. They would eat failure up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yum, 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 yum. They just loved failure. They loved this stuff. And I was thinking, I have an idea. Just tell me where the failure is going to happen. Tell me where those pitfalls are, and I will avoid that part of the ride. Thanks, there, failure averted. But failure doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It's more stealthy and unique to you and your situation at the time. Because like in one case, it might look like a miscommunication opportunity that results in loss of revenue. And in another, it might look like getting blindsided by somebody you never should have trusted to begin with, but you didn't know that at the time. But in any case, failure really is part of your growth and learning process, because it just means that you're actually doing something. You're putting something out there in the world. Sometimes what you do works and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. As long as you're learning and improving on your process, you are on the right track. Looking at failure as an opportunity for growth helps to insulate you from emotional ups and downs that are so real on this journey, especially when you're just starting out. Which brings us to expectation number 4. And that is that entrepreneurship can be an emotional roller coaster of epic proportions. One day you're up and flying high, ideas are flowing, interest in your thing is growing, and everything pertaining to your business seems to be going in the right direction. And literally the very next day, everything you thought was going right, you find is going all the way left. And keep in mind, when it comes to money, it's common for new businesses not to make any for the first year, which after a while is enough to really tank anybody's spirit. But the best analogy I can use is like being a parent of a small child. And even if you're not a parent yourself, I'm sure you can relate to the emotional ups and downs that come with loving someone so much that you literally feel like you can feel every emotion that they do. And that's kind of exactly the same way it is with your business. The journey you go on as a business owner is as much an emotional one as it is strategic. This emotional roller coaster phenomenon in entrepreneurship is so pervasive that countless articles and podcasts and videos and books have been dedicated to its discussion, more than I could possibly go into in this short video. So suffice it to say, it's a real thing. And in order to ultimately be successful in your business, you're going to need to employ strategies to help you navigate it as well. So one resource you could check out is The Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. It will help you to anticipate and mitigate some of that emotional variance that you are definitely going to be experiencing on your path. Ultimately though, I think the key really is about managing your expectations and staying flexible on your entrepreneurial journey, because Lord knows it can be unpredictable. Which leads us nicely into expectation number 5, which is that you will need to be working on your mindset constantly. Now, I've shared on the channel in the past that my journey into entrepreneurship started with mindset. It had to. So at the time, I was well established as a social work professional, but for all my learning and expertise in social work, I still found myself with a huge amount of debt, trying to figure out how to get out of it. And all of the financial role models I found kept talking about shifting my mindset, which at the time was extremely frustrating because I didn't know how to shift it or what that even meant. But the more I studied and immersed myself in books like Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, the more my mindset began to change. I mean, like phenomenally. Now, those books helped me in 2 ways. Number 1, they introduced me to what it meant to have a wealth mentality. And number 2, they encouraged an entrepreneurial mindset. But I started taking more ownership of the results in my life instead of assuming that I was destined to live from paycheck to paycheck. I started actively assigning purpose and mission to my days instead of just floating through. I started setting big goals, like really big goals, and applying action steps to reach them. I started seeing my mission as a social worker being as much about fully honoring and enjoying the gift that was my life as it was about serving others. So having the right mindset will help you to mitigate the doubt and discouragement that is bound to try to take root in your thought. That's why I said you will be working on your mindset constantly, because those thoughts of fear or lack or imposter syndrome don't just go away on their own. You're going to need to employ every tool you've got to keep them in check and at bay. Now, one of the most common challenges I see with social workers is learning how to shift their mindset from one that's focused on lack and limitation to one that's focused on wealth and abundance. The good news for you is that hanging around this channel is one of the great ways to help your mindset change. In fact, I bet it already has. So let me know in the comments what's shifted. But yeah, mindset is everything. It's the thing that has the greatest impact on how you show up in your business and what you ultimately produce. And speaking of producing, that's another thing about starting a business. You actually have to create something. You have to show up. It's you that has to put in the work and make something for someone else to buy from you. Now, I imagine that for some of you, this might seem like a wasted point to make. You already know that you're gonna have to show up and put in work and you're prepared to do so. But for those of you who were like me when I was just starting out, the concept that you have to organize your ideas to create products to sell might elude you. For the longest time, I had an idea for a business, but I had nothing really to show for it. No packages, no strategy, no product, and no clients. So you're gonna have to be in action to develop your business, or else nothing's going to happen to move the needle forward. There is no magic wand that you can wave and voila, suddenly your business is started running and successful overnight. It's all you and your effort that produces results. Now, of course, there's a lot you can do to automate and delegate, but even in those operations, you are the one that's making the decisions about what needs to be automated and delegated and when. Because when you're just starting out, there's very little responsibility that you're going to be able to delegate without having to be in the weeds of the work yourself first. And I think that a lot of times social workers go into entrepreneurship subconsciously thinking that someone else is going to be responsible for doing the work at some level. I think I was. Eventually, I figured it out. But I admit, I really was in the dark for quite a long time, and I don't want you to be in the dark yourself. So if you are thinking about entrepreneurship and not knowing where to start, definitely book that time with me and we'll get you on the right track. One of the huge things that helped me to see the light was when I started connecting with other entrepreneurs to share the journey with. Because one of the things that's common in entrepreneurship, and what you might even experience when you're starting out, is that it can be a really lonely road. When it's all you coming up with the ideas and making decisions and reaching out to prospects, especially if you're used to working in an environment where you get to collaborate with others and rely on feedback to make decisions. After a while, working on your own can be really isolating. Now, that's not to say that you can't still lean on the people you've relied on in the past, but what happens a lot of the time, I think, is that when you're working on your business, your framework changes. And so the people that have been in your life can't necessarily relate if they are not also on an entrepreneurial path themselves. And they might even discourage you from following the dream that you have. So that's why it's important to find a tribe of like-minded people who are also entrepreneurially minded and who get what it's like to take a chance on yourself and to put your thing out there, and who can remind you of why you signed up for this life in the first place. Now, one of the biggest discoveries that I had as an entrepreneur was how bad I was at managing myself and my time. And I know we spoke about time earlier and how it may take a lot of time to get your thing off the ground, but this is a little more specific. So when you're your own boss, no one is holding you to a deadline except for you. And as great as that might sound, if you're not strategic about how you manage yourself and your time, entire quarters, entire years may go by and you won't see any progress. So managing yourself and your time to the best of your ability is the name of the game. It is so important. There's a ton of approaches that you can use to help you optimize how you manage yourself and your time as well. I recommend checking out this video to get started. Now, I've shared just a few of the things that you can expect when you're starting an entrepreneurial journey, and a lot really depends on the business you start. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about what business models are, why they matter, and how to choose the best one for you. So make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is on so that you don't miss it. Thanks so much for being here. As always, I believe you can dream, be, do, or have anything you want, but it starts with your mindset. So make sure it's a good one. I'll see you in the next video.